our futures.
The clerk's office is currently in talks with the National Park Service to have the document displayed at Taft's birthplace. Parikh says future generations likely won't get the thrill of similar discoveries if another president passes through the courthouse. Almost all court documents these days are digitized. No pen and ink signatures necessary. For NPR News, I'm Nick Swartzell in Cincinnati.
WNYC is supported by Art on Paper, a medium-driven art fair returning to downtown Manhattan this September 5th through 8th, featuring 75 exhibitors of modern and contemporary paper-based art. Learn more at ny.thepaperfair.com.
You're listening to WNYC. Good morning. It's 6:50. It's nice to have you with us on this Friday. Marketplace Morning Report is next, and later on Morning Edition, fast fashion giant Shein is suing its rival Temu. The two discount retailers have been battling it out in court for months and have accused each other of intimidation, theft, and fraud. More on the ongoing feud coming up in about 15 minutes on Morning Edition from NPR and WNYC. Waking up to sunny skies this morning at 62 degrees. It'll be sunny throughout the day with a high around 82. And tonight, mostly clear skies with lows in the mid-60s. It's big and it's flat, full of tension and fear.
Vice President Kamala Harris's economic priorities.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for individuals who want to join an inclusive and unique culture. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers. And by C3 Generative AI. Verified, traceable answers. Secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free, C3.ai. This is Enterprise AI.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Ben-Shor, in for David Brancaccio. Vice President Harris closed the Democratic National Convention last night with an acceptance speech that broadly laid out her priorities. On the dollars and cents side of things, she highlighted protecting Social Security and Medicare, ending, that's her word, the housing shortage in this country, and a tax cut for middle-income households. Marketplace's Nova Safo joins us from Chicago with more. Good morning, Nova.
Good morning, Sabri.
So the vice president had signaled that she would be framing her economic message as one focused on supporting the middle class. Is that what we got? Any surprises?
Less surprises and more emphasis on certain things. And I'll give you an example. She described herself as realistic and practical, her words. And those words are important because much of the country is getting to know her again or for the first time, and she's defining what kind of policies she will pursue, economic or otherwise. And on the economic front, yes, she said she would be squarely focused on the middle class.
We know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success, and building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
What does that look like in terms of specific proposals?
Well, she promised a middle-class tax cut. She said that would affect 100 million Americans. We'll have to see what the details are there. But the next president will have a lot of sway over tax policy because many of the Trump-era tax cuts are set to expire. President Biden had wanted to keep cuts for households making less than $400,000. Harris's advisors told convention goers this week that they do expect her to continue or many of the Biden administration's economic policies. And a lot of these things, though, Sabri, will require congressional action.
All right. Marketplace's Nova Safo in Chicago. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 3 to 0.8% range. The Dow futures up 139 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 3.847%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, focused on offering smart business buying solutions, leading time to focus on growth. More at amazonbusiness.com. And by The Economist, devoted to providing independent journalism that makes sense of the news shaping the world. More at economist.com or with The Economist app, newsletters, and podcasts.
Earlier this week, Disney backed down from its claim that a man whose wife died at Disney World could not take the company to court because he had signed away his right to sue when he signed up for a Disney Plus trial years earlier. What he signed was something called an arbitration agreement. But what exactly is that? And how common is it for one to be buried in the terms and conditions of our apps and our streaming services, all the agreements we sign but never read? Turns out, not uncommon. Here to talk about it with us is David Horton, who teaches law at the University of California, Davis. Professor Horton, welcome.
Thanks so much.
So, for starters, what exactly is an arbitration agreement?
So an arbitration agreement is an agreement in which the parties agree that they will forego access to the court system to resolve any dispute that they might have, and instead will resolve the dispute privately in front of an arbitrator who is essentially acting like a private judge.
How do people usually get into these agreements?
For most everyday people going through their lives, they will enter into these agreements without realizing it by doing things as simple as deciding that you want to sign up for a streaming service, joining a gym, accepting a job. Studies show that these agreements tend to exist in roughly 80% of all contracts that are drafted by Fortune 500 companies. So they really are sort of everywhere in society, even though we don't realize it.
Are there situations where an arbitration agreement would, from a common sense perspective, be a good idea or make sense?
Definitely. It's generally considered to be faster than the court system. There's also some evidence that arbitration may be cheaper for the parties. But the reason why forced arbitration is controversial is because those reasons are arguably outweighed by the fact that plaintiffs don't have the same procedural and evidentiary advantages that they do when they're in the court system.
The Disney example, this guy signs a contract for a Disney Plus free trial, and then Disney says, well, that also applies to you eating at a Disney restaurant. How common is that kind of a situation where you find yourself in an arbitration agreement for one situation because of something you signed in a completely different situation?
So 20 years ago, this type of situation was extremely rare, but the U.S. Supreme Court decided a bunch of cases in the 2010s that essentially made these arbitration clauses more valuable to businesses because they effectively blocked the ability of individuals to band together in a class action. And because of that, companies began drafting what I've called these infinite arbitration clauses that say that not only do you agree to resolve any future dispute that you might have that relates to this contract that you just signed, but you agree to resolve any future dispute that you have in arbitration with us ever, regardless of what the subject matter is.
Is there any effort to change this, to modify this, how this all works?
In Congress, there's been very limited success, in part because there are powerful interest groups that oppose any attempt to reduce the prevalence of arbitration clauses. But there have been some success stories. And in fact, the Disney Plus story, this is, I think, the third sort of high-profile situation. And the pushback has been enough that the company has voluntarily decided to reverse course.
David Horton, Martin Luther King Jr. Professor of Law at UC Davis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera. Our digital producer is Dylan Mietinen. Our engineers are Brian Allison and John Brewington. And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include Hospital for Special Surgery. Bike HSS is a one-day cycling ride on Saturday, September 14th in and around Westchester County to support better mobility. Ride or volunteer. For more info and to register, visit bikehss.org.
On the next All of It, the new thriller Strange Darling challenges everything you think you know about the traditional cat and mouse premise. The New York Times calls it ingenious and best experienced stone cold. We'll stay away from spoilers with